Good morning. How many people were cold this morning when they got up? I just want to tell you, we have some friends that were in Vermont yesterday, and she texted me in the middle of the afternoon, not in the morning, the middle of the afternoon, minus 25 with minus 45 wind chill. Whew! I would not want to be skiing in minus 25 with minus 45 wind chill. I want to talk to you about the Christian Singles Network just for a minute. Pay attention, Jim. When I think about the Christian Singles Network, and we were here for my wife and I were in the ministry here for 10 years with Christian Singles Network, I think of three things, and these are in order of what I am fondest about. Number one was a retreat that we went to at Camp Victus every fall. And we worked hard for months on planning this retreat. And they were always just, as I like to say, a hoot. I mean, we just had the best time at Camp Victus. The second thing that was really good was the once-a-year banquet that we had. We usually had that in the spring in like March, and we had music and we had skits, and they were funny. And all the people that were in CSN could come, and all the people who had graduated by being married out of CSN could come. And they lasted, those meals and everything lasted 3 or 4 hours. And they were wonderful. And the third thing was the road rallies that we had. Every spring we'd have a road rally, and you'd come and get in a car with 3 or 4 people, some you may not even know, and be handed a packet that said, okay, go out here and make a left, and you had to fill in blanks, and you had to stop and count things and bring things to the finish, and then there were prizes awarded. And they were fun. So we stayed busy. We stayed out of jail, and it was just wonderful. I want to first thank you as a church for all that you do for us. You send us a check every month, which the Lord allows us to use. I think I can tell you later, very wisely. And some of you ladies knit, and there's boxes of those in the closet around the corner. And you've put markers together. I had an opportunity a year and a half ago to get, I don't know how many pallets of markers that were mixed. There were bags of 80 markers. There were 10 sets of 8 markers in each bag, and they had to be sorted and put into like a little sandwich bag. And some of the ladies, I think Dr. Mary's Circle, have sorted hundreds of those for us, and those go right into a shoebox. So I'll talk first, just about our ministry a little bit. As Pastor said, we do go overseas. We don't go as often as we used to. When we first started, I was going just about once a month somewhere. In 2017, I went on 4 trips. I went to Haiti in January with Mark Larimer's church, just outside of Cincinnati. I went to Kosovo with a team, and we still go there in April. At the end of May, I led a college-age group from my church to Bolivia, and I'll talk a little bit about Bolivia in a minute. And then I just came back about 3 weeks ago from Armenia, and I may have told you about Armenia. I'd like to explain it again. I have a friend at our church who's Armenian. They say if your last name ends in I-A-N, odds are very good that you're Armenian. So you know right away the Kardashians are Armenian. I've seen pictures of them there. So my friend Al, who knew he was Armenian but had never been there, wanted to go badly to see his heritage, and about 6 years ago had an opportunity to go on a medical missions trip with a group from California. And his first weekend home, he came to me and grabbed me by the arm and he said, "Nelson, you've got to help me. The need in Armenia is really great. Will you help me? Will you help me?" And I said, "Well, sure, I'll help you." So the short story is, by making some connections with a missionary organization in New Jersey, we sent 4 years ago a shipping container to Armenia to make 7,000 shoe boxes. They said if we made the boxes here and put them in the container, they would never get out of customs. They'd want to look through every one. So the only way to get the stuff there was to send like all the spiral notebooks on one pallet, all the crayons on another pallet, so they could very clearly see this is what this is, and they'd let it out. So I'd never filled a shipping container before, never made a manifest before, never done any of those things, but the Lord helped me to get through that, and we sent a shipping container to Armenia, and then we took a team of about 6 people, and with about 30 volunteers, we made 7,000 shoeboxes in about 3 days, and then those were distributed through the Armenian church to children who were very needy. So the second year it was 7,500. 2 years ago it was 9,000. Every year the number goes up. This last year they asked for 10,000, and I said, well, I think that's about the limit of what I can get in a shipping container. I mean, we had every nook and cranny filled with something. Boxes of shoestrings or cardboard or tape or something. And we went this year and made 10,000. I think it was actually 9,850, and then they made 400 gift bags for Vacation Bible School during the summer. And we'll meet with them just in a week or two to talk about 2018. Trips coming up this year for us will be, let me think, next month. I've been asked by Operation Christmas Child, thanks to you and many other churches, to go with a team from Samaritan's Purse to Mexico. And it's a short trip. It's 4 days. We leave on a Thursday morning. I actually get to fly in Samaritan's Purse owned plane. And before you think, oh my gosh, they spent millions of dollars on a plane, they didn't. They went to one of those airplane junkyards. Have you seen those on TV where all the planes set and the doors are off and some have engines and some don't? And they found one of the best ones that they could find, and somebody offered to help fix it up. And it's a DC-10, and it seats 32 people and can carry 12,000 shoeboxes. So I'll meet some other people there in Greensboro, North Carolina, and fly to Mexico. We'll be there for 4 days and hand out those 12,000 shoeboxes. So that's the middle of February. I've been to Bolivia twice. Our church has missionaries there, and they have an airplane ministry, and they fly people in and out of the jungle that are sick, and they also are planting churches in some of the villages that they fly in and out of. And we've been privileged to go into some of those villages and conduct Vacation Bible School. So the first time I went, which was about 4 years ago, I asked the husband, his name is Tony, I said, do you get Operation Christmas Child shoeboxes here? He said, Nelson, I've never seen one. He said, I don't doubt that some come into the country, but we just don't get them. They don't make it to us. So I was there last year, and I asked again. And he said, Nelson, the only way that I'd be able to distribute a shoebox to a child in one of the villages that you've been to would be that we either bought the stuff here in the country and built them in country, and that would be very expensive, I can tell you, because I'm always looking at the prices of things when we go places. Or if somebody shipped a container of the stuff to us and we built them in country. And I said, well, Tony, where would it be shipped from? You know, where do you have an organization in the United States? He said, well, it's in Minnesota. It's in Minneapolis. It's called Mano a Mano. He said, if you could get the stuff to them, they'd ship it to us. I went back to our little room that night and texted my friend in Findlay, Ohio, who has a trucking company, and I said, if I built 4 or 5 pallets, could you get them from Allentown to Minneapolis? And he wrote me back and said, for you I would. And I went to Tony the next morning and I said, I can get that stuff that you need to Minneapolis. What do we do next? And he said, well, you get it to me and then you can bring a team and we'll build however many boxes and we'll fly them out into the jungle. And you can tell the kids about Jesus and hand out the boxes. So those 5 pallets are now in Bolivia. And this summer I'll be taking a team with the youth pastor from our church and about 8 or 10 young people back to Bolivia to build 2,500 shoeboxes and then put those young people in 2 planes and fly them out into the jungle. The first time we went to one of the villages, the women didn't even have on many clothes. And I don't have to go further than that, but it's a little better than that now. But that's where we'll be going to talk to the kids and to share Jesus with them. I mentioned about money and your financial support, just want to give you one example, and it's the biggest and the best one. Much of the inventory that we receive comes from a place in Illinois called NAIR. And it stands for something I won't even bore you with, but it's NAEIR. And NAIR solicits companies all over the United States for what they call obsolete or slow-moving inventory. And I'll give you an example of it in a minute. But last year, our ministry received over $2.75 million worth of inventory, and I can show you the paperwork, from NAIR. And my out-of-pocket cost to them was just over $50,000. So the monies that you give to us goes into that $50,000 bucket, which goes to NAIR. That's a return of over 40 to 1. 40 to 1. I used to tell people if they gave us $1, I'd get 5 out of it. And I think I told you last year about the one story, but then I moved it up to 10, and then I moved it up to 25, and I think I'm just going to keep it at 25 to be safe. I don't want to keep raising the number. But it's incredible the stuff that they get, that we get, that goes in shoeboxes. And they work with me, and they, when they get things they think I want, they'll call me and offer them to me before they even put it in their catalog, which is just an incredible, incredible blessing. How many of you have seen in all the stores the spinners? You're at the checkout counter and there's a spinner in a little box. I've said to my wife for a year, those are going to end up at NAIR because there's just too many of them. I mean, there's just too many. Nobody's buying them. So we were over in Armenia, and we were talking one night about, well, what are we going to put in the boxes next year? And I said, odds are good that we'll be putting spinners in the boys' boxes because they're going to end up at NAIR. I just know it. I came home from Armenia 2 days. 2 days. After I came home from Armenia, I get an email saying, just received at NAIR, spinners. And they had, I don't know how many different kinds, different colors, bazillions of spinners. So those will be going into the shoe boxes. Last year, we were privileged, and I mean it sincerely, to reach over 50,000 young people for Christ through what we do. And I don't mean that as a boast, it's just a fact. We built, with your help, over 38,000 Operation Christmas Child shoe boxes. 38,456. And when you add to that the 10,000 that we sent to Armenia and the 2,500 that we sent to Bolivia, plus all the stuff that we send to Kosovo, plus all the other people who stop at the warehouse and take things that they put in shoe boxes that, I can't even keep track of. It's just very humbling, honestly, to share that with you. But that's what we do, and we enjoy it very much. I want to transition now to my message this morning. A year ago, just about, I was in Illinois with my friend Terry. I don't always drive the Sprinter truck to Illinois anymore. We have grown to the point where we have to fly there and pick up a Penske truck, which is almost twice as big as my truck. Looks little compared to the Penske truck. But we pick up a Penske truck, fill it there, and drive it back. So we flew in January last year to Peoria, Illinois, picked up the Penske truck, and I did something silly. I didn't check the weather forecast. And we went to the hotel, got up the next morning, and it was pouring down the snow. I had no choice but to get in the truck, drive to NAIR. The whole time we were there filling the truck, it was pouring down the snow. We finished loading the truck, and we started home. Well, the windshield wipers would freeze up, and every 15 or 20 minutes we'd have to stop, and I'd have to climb up onto the hood to bang the ice off of the windshield wipers. And I don't remember where it happened, but I got back in the truck, and my friend Terry, who's a wonderful man, turned to me and he said, "Do you think we're going to get home. And I said something, probably one of the most profound things I've ever said, and I've said very few, but I looked at him and I said, it's not important when we get home, it's important that we're headed in the right direction. And we'll just take our time, and we'll get there. I'm not sure when, but we'll get there. So I wanted to share with you this morning. I normally don't talk from notes, but I wanted to be sure I didn't forget one, so I wrote them all down. The title of my message is, Are We Headed in the Right Direction? We just began a new year, and I know people make New Year's resolutions and all those kinds of things, but that story came to my mind, and the world that we live in today is getting more bizarre by the minute. So I have several points, but I'm going to go quickly, so don't get nervous. How do we make sure that we're headed in the right direction? I think first we need to determine which way is the right direction. We can't be going in the right direction unless we know what direction that is. And I just want to read 2 verses to you this morning. In John 14, verse 6, in the first part of it, Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. Amen? And another verse, Matthew 7, verse 13 says, enter through the narrow gate. And the rest of that verse talks about wide is the gate to destruction. So, we don't want to go that direction. We want to go through the narrow gate, and that narrow gate is Christ. So determine first which way is right. Secondly, avoid distractions. And we have them by the boatload. And I want to read to you just a short list, and none of these things in and of themselves are bad, but they can be bad, depending on how you choose to use them. The internet. There's a lot of good on the internet, there's a lot of bad. And the harder you try to just look at the good, the bad keeps popping up. It does at my house, and it makes me very angry. Television. I love to watch television, but there's a lot of bad on television, and it's getting worse. The news. Don't pay attention to the news. That drives me crazy. And even Facebook. I mean, some people spend hours every day on Facebook. Have you gone to a restaurant recently and looked around at couples, and they're both on their phone, waiting for their order to come? They're not talking to each other, or saying, I love you, and how are the kids? They're on their phone. Maybe they're texting each other, I don't know. But I see it all the time. We leave our phones in the car when we go out to eat. Psalm 101:3 says this, I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. So that means all that's going in through these should be good. And it's hard. I know it's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for me. Okay, so determine which way is right. Avoid distractions. Number 3, expect setbacks. Just when you think things are going good, there's a setback. Well, what kind of setbacks are there? Well, there's financial, there's physical, there's family. I mean, we lose family members that we dearly love, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that once we work through that we need to still be headed in the right direction. Matthew 5, in verse 45, the latter part of it, it says that the Lord sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Different people, particularly when I worked at Dun & Bradstreet and they knew that I went to church, would come to me and say, well, why is it this way for everybody? Why, if you go to church, shouldn't things be better for you? And I would say to them, well, if you becoming a Christian meant that you didn't get sick and that you didn't have problems, there'd be more churches in the world than there would be houses. I mean, we'd be so packed in here this morning and there'd be people out in the parking lot waiting to get in because they didn't want to be sick or they didn't want to have financial problems. So it just can't be that way. Okay, number 4, be faithful in service to your family and your church. It's easy when you have one of these financial setbacks to say, God doesn't love me anymore, I'm not going to go to church as much anymore. I can tell you stories of people that I know that had something significant happen to them or one of their children, and they quit. They just quit. Totally. In fact, gave up on Christ and church and everything. They just quit. So Matthew 22, verse 37 says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind." Number 5, and I'm almost done, encourage one another. We are here this morning because we love the Lord, and because we all love the Lord, we're supposed to love each other. Right, Pastor? Yeah. And we're supposed to encourage one another. I couldn't begin to tell you how many people in just the last week have said, that they're praying for Robin, or they pray for me and the ministry. And I've been texting people, that I know that are having issues and saying, "I'm praying for you, I love you," whatever. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 18 says, "Therefore encourage one another with these words." Now my last one is not, number 6, is not very scriptural. But I thought you might remember it when you left here, and that's why I'm going to share it with you. How many of you have ever seen the movie Galaxy Quest? Galaxy Quest. If you've never seen this movie, you need to rent it if you want a belly laugh for 2 hours. It's hysterical. It's just hysterical. It's a story about some aliens that are very human-looking that come to Earth to recruit Tim Toolman Taylor, I forget his real name, to help them because they're being, they're in like a war. And one of the things that these aliens say all the time is this, and you should remember it: never surrender, never give up. And they were oppressed, and many of them were killed, and it's just a funny, comical movie. But Robin and I will periodically look at one another at the right time and say, never surrender, never give up. I want all of us to be headed in the right direction this year. There'll be obstacles. I can't tell you how many I've faced just in the last 7 days. 7 days. So I'm hoping that things get a little better from here going forward. I want to close by reading, I think I marked it, maybe I didn't. I want to read a verse from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. "Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." If Robin were here, I know she would say that she loves you. I love you. I enjoy all the interaction that we have with your church. I want to thank you again for all that you do. And Pastor.